I never thought I'd be afraid of my neighbor. My name is David. I'm 33 and I live in Wichita, Kansas. I'm saying this out loud because I haven't been sleeping, and keeping it inside is starting to feel worse than the thing itself. I never thought fear could come from something so close, so ordinary, the house next door. I grew up thinking fear was for other places, alleys downtown, motels off the highway, not a quiet block with chain-link fences and barking dogs and people who wave when they pull their trash bins to the curb. But here I am. I moved onto this street 4 years ago. It's on the west side, not far from a Dillon's and a quick trip off Kellogg. Ranch houses, low roofs, sprinkler systems that kick on before sunrise. My place is a small 2-bedroom with a detached garage and a backyard that meets another yard with a shared fence. I work weekdays, early mornings, so I'm home by the afternoon. My routine is boring in a nice way. Groceries on Friday, yard work on Saturday, Chiefs game on Sunday if it's on. I knew most of the neighbors in that surface-level suburban way. First names, vehicles, which house gives out good candy on Halloween. For a long time, nothing weird ever happened. It was just normal. The guy next door didn't fit into the normal, but I didn't think much of it. He's maybe late 40s, shaved head, heavy boots, always in the same washed-out hoodie, no matter the weather. He keeps to himself. I don't know his name. I tried once to say hi when I moved in, just a wave as I carried a box, and he stared through me like I wasn't there. After that, I left him alone. That seemed fair. Some people want privacy. Fine. What stuck with me over time was how long he could stand outside doing nothing. I'd see him in his yard, not smoking, not on his phone, not watering anything, not even pretending to look at the sky, just standing with his hands in his hoodie pocket, eyes somewhere ahead. It's hard to describe without sounding dramatic, but imagine opening your blinds and seeing someone 10 feet away, motionless, facing your direction, and realizing you'd seen the same thing yesterday and the day before, for a little too long each time. It was easy to shrug off at first. People zone out, they pace, they have weird hobbies. Only it wasn't just sometimes. It started to be the same time every night. Around 10:30 p.m., I usually turn off the living room lamp and head to the kitchen to rinse a glass. Late last summer, when the nights were still hot, I noticed him again through the gap in my blinds, right at the back fence line, just inside his yard, like a shadow had walked to the property mark and stopped. He was angled toward my house. I thought, okay, coincidence. I let the blinds fall and told myself to mind my business. Next night, 10:30 again, he was there, same spot. The time after that, he was closer to my fence, facing the house. No phone, no dog, just him. I tried to logic it away. Maybe he was listening for something. Maybe he was checking his sprinklers. Maybe he liked the night air. Wichita is quiet late on weeknights. There's this hum from the highway if the wind is right, but otherwise you hear crickets, a train in the distance, sometimes an owl if you're lucky. It can make people do strange little rituals. I stood in my own yard at night a couple times back in the spring just to cool off. So I told myself it was that. I shut the blinds, turned on the TV, tried to be normal. Then I started hearing footsteps outside the bedroom window around midnight. Not constant pacing, just a slow crunch on the old mulch, a pause, a soft scrape against the fence slats. Then nothing. I thought raccoon. I thought wind. The next night I heard it again and I sat up in bed. It was the same rhythm, not wandering, not random. Step, step, stop. Like someone repositioning their weight carefully to avoid making noise. I lay there holding my breath, counting. After a minute, a low thud, like a boot heel touching the wood support at the corner of the fence. I got up, went to the hallway and flicked on the back porch light. By the time I reached the kitchen and looked out, I saw the edge of a hoodie slipping past the far post, back into the shadow of his yard. I bought a cheap motion light at Home Depot and installed it above the back door. The first night it triggered twice at 12:18 and 12:42 a.m. I watched through the peephole. The second time I saw it, just the suggestion of a shoulder beyond the curtain. Then a dark shape sliding out of the cone of light as if it had been waiting at the edge of it. I told myself, okay, that's enough. I moved a heavy dining chair under the back doorknob. I slept badly. I kept my phone on the nightstand. It was easy, weirdly, to rationalize during the day. In daylight, everything on our street looks harmless. Lawns, kids' bikes, someone's grill cover flapping. I take the trash out and feel foolish for being tense. One Saturday morning, I was in the driveway, sweeping out the garage, and he came out to fetch his mail. He stopped halfway down his walkway and stood still, like he had earlier. I said, "Hey, man," because that's what you say. He didn't answer. He didn't even blink that I could see. He just turned his head a few degrees, like he was aligning something in his mind, and then kept walking. My spine did this cold thing that didn't match the sunny day at all. It felt like being measured. After that, I got a Ring camera for the back door, the simple battery one. I positioned it so it could see most of the patio and a slice of the yard near the fence. I set the notifications too sensitive, and my phone buzzed constantly. Moths, the neighbor's cat, a spider web doing a little dance in front of the lens. I adjusted it. That first week, nothing useful showed up. I almost relaxed. Then, on a Tuesday at 1:06 a.m., it recorded a person standing just beyond the edge of the patio, mostly hidden by the curtain. You could see a shoulder, the curve of the hoodie, the pale line of knuckles as a hand hovered near the doorframe. It didn't show his face. He stood there exactly 31 seconds, then the light came on, and he slipped backward into darkness. The video is grainy and stupid, and I hate it because to anyone else it looks like nothing. To me, it looks like a person getting brave in my yard. I called the non-emergency number the next day. I tried to be reasonable. I told them I wasn't sure, that it could be a delivery driver looking lost, that I just wanted it on record. The officer who came by was nice. He did a lap of the yard with me, checked the fence. He told me to keep the lights working and to call back if anything else happened. He didn't roll his eyes or anything, but he wasn't living in my house at night either. He couldn't feel how the hallway air felt heavier after midnight, like you were breathing through fabric. There were small things after that made it hard to keep lying to myself. A faint smear on the back door glass at hand height. A thin scratch at the strike plate where the latch meets the frame, like a metal edge had slid across it. One morning, I found the wooden gate to the side yard propped open by an inch with a small stone I didn't put there. The latch on that gate had always stuck. You had to pull it hard. I started closing it with a bungee cord just in case. The bungee disappeared 2 nights later. I found it 3 days after that under the bushes near the bedroom window. That one made me sit down on the grass like I was 30 years older than I am. I tried to talk to a neighbor I trust across the street, Tom, a retired guy who walks early and knows everything that happens before sunrise. I kept it vague. I didn't want to sound paranoid. He nodded a lot and said he'd keep an eye out. He told me the guy next door had lived there a long time, inherited the house when his mom passed, and wasn't a chatty type. Tom said it in the careful voice people use when they mean there are unspoken stories, but they don't want trouble. My sleep got weird. I'd doze and then pop awake because I thought I heard a footstep. I'd check every lock twice, then get out of bed to check a third time. I kept the living room lamp on low. For a few weeks it didn't escalate, which was almost worse because the uncertainty stretched everything too tight. I started doing short, late-night loops around my yard with a flashlight before bed, just quick. Light off, step out, light on, scan, go back in. The routine helped until it didn't. About a month ago, after a day that was normal in every way, I came home to find my back door deadbolt a quarter turn-off from where I'd left it. This is one of those details that sounds like nothing in a story, but in real life makes your mouth go dry. I double-locked it every time. I had started saying the number in my head when I did it to make sure. Click, click, then the chain. That afternoon the chain was on, the knob lock was locked, but the deadbolt felt wrong, like someone with strong fingers had held it and put mild pressure the wrong way. There was a faint grey line around the keyhole like a tool had kissed it. I took pictures. I told myself I was being dramatic and then sent the pictures to my brother anyway. 2 nights later, it happened. It was around 2:04 a.m. because I looked at the oven clock later. I woke because something moved in the house, that tiny pressure change you feel when a door flexes. A second later came a slow, deliberate rattling at the back door. Not banging, not even knocking. A careful test, metal against metal, as if the person on the other side was trying to feel how the latch sat and whether there was any give. I stopped breathing. The house made its normal house noises, but they sounded like part of him. The fridge hum, the AC clicking. All of it felt like it belonged to the intruder now. The curtain over the back door is cheap white fabric. When the motion light triggers, it throws a rectangle of light on it, and you can see outlines. I stood there in the dark of the dining room and watched a tall shadow move across that curtain, closer, then away, like someone adjusting their angle to see through the gap. The handle rattled again, once, twice, and then held. My ring chime made a soft sound in the living room and vibrated my phone on the table, which was absurdly loud to me. The shape froze. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I was barefoot on the cold tile. My legs felt uncooperative, like I had to tell them which muscles to fire. I don't know why I did what I did next. Maybe I wanted to make him run. Maybe I wanted him to know I was awake. I went to the hallway, reached around the corner, and slammed the kitchen light on. The shadow snapped away from the curtain. For a fraction of a second, through the side window pane, I saw a cheekbone, a flash of eyes, and the dark outline of that same hoodie. He didn't stumble or panic. He moved like he'd practiced moving away quickly without noise. He cut across the narrow edge of the patio, slipped between my grill and the herb planter, and was gone into the dark toward the fence. The motion light went from bright to off too slowly, making it feel like I was the one revealed, like I stood there under a silent siren. I called 911 this time. My voice did that thin thing where it tries to sound calm and fails. The dispatcher was patient. A patrol car rolled down the street with its lights off 3 minutes later. The officers did what they could. They checked the yard. They looked at the ring clip. They walked next door and knocked. No one answered. They told me to document everything, to consider staying somewhere else for a night or two, and to call again if he came back. They asked if I knew the neighbor's name. I said I didn't. They nodded in a way that made me feel like I'd dropped the ball somehow. I didn't sleep. I put the dining chair under the knob again. I put a second one there for good measure. I sat on the living room floor with my back to the couch and watched that stupid curtain like it was a screen with a movie on it, waiting for the next scene. Nothing happened until dawn. When I finally stood up, my knees hurt. I walked the yard at first light and found a shallow scrape through the dirt under the fence where someone had pressed a foot down to crouch. On my side, near the corner, there were a couple of faint partial boot prints on the concrete, dried mud with a small pebble stamped into one tread. Small details, but real. I left for work early just to be in motion. On the way out, I saw him on his back steps. He wasn't looking at me, and he wasn't pretending to do anything. He just stood there with his hands in his hoodie pocket like always, chin down, head tilted, listening to something I couldn't hear. I felt this electric hatred rise in my chest that scared me because part of me wanted to walk over and confront him, and that felt like a bad idea. I'm not that guy. I don't want to be on the news. I went to my truck and drove away with my jaw clenched so hard I gave myself a headache. During lunch, I called a locksmith. He came that afternoon and looked at the door. He pointed at the shallow scratch by the strike plate and made a face that said, "Yeah." He replaced the deadbolt with a better one and suggested a small latch guard. He also suggested a longer screw in the door frame plate. He was kind. He told me a story about someone trying doorknobs in his own neighborhood like it was a normal thing to soften it. After he left, I ordered additional cameras, one for the side yard, one for the front porch. That evening, this is how quickly you can lose your comfort, I packed a bag. I did it almost without deciding, like my hands took over. A couple of shirts, underwear, toothbrush, my charger. I called my brother and asked if I could sleep on his couch. He said yes without questions, which told me he already knew from my voice how thin I was stretched. I locked everything, double-checked, triple-checked, then left the house at 8:30 p.m. while it was still light out enough to not feel hunted. I sat in my truck for 3 minutes before pulling out, watching the neighbor's house through the rear view. Nothing moved. That felt like the worst part, like an empty stage. I stayed with my brother 2 nights. On his couch, even with a dog snoring somewhere in the house, I woke up twice, thinking I heard my back door rattle. That second morning I went back to grab more clothes and to see the house in daylight so it didn't become some haunted space in my head. The place smelled like itself, laundry detergent, a hint of coffee, the mild, dusty smell of carpet that's been closed up. I felt both relief and anger at that normal smell. The cameras had recorded nothing obvious while I was gone. When I finally decided to go back for a full night, I did it with this plan that I'd sleep with the bedroom door locked and a flashlight on the nightstand. I stacked my dining chairs again, which I know does almost nothing, but I did it anyway. I told myself the police report and the new locks had reset something. I told myself he'd gotten scared off by the patrol car. That night, at 10:30 p.m., I looked through the blinds out of habit. He was in his yard at the fence line, hands in his pockets, head angled my direction. He stood there a long time, longer than anyone stands anywhere for any good reason. I dropped the blinds. My mouth tasted like metal. I felt something like a string inside me finally snap. I went to the bedroom and opened the closet and pulled down a duffel bag. I started packing for real, not just shirts. The documents, the little fireproof box, the extra set of keys. I pulled the framed photo from the hallway wall and wrapped it in a towel because it felt symbolic to leave it. I walked from room to room and put things in boxes like I'd rehearsed it in my head already, because I had. I called my landlord the next morning and told him I had to break the lease. I didn't give details. He wasn't thrilled, but he also wasn't surprised. Maybe that's my projection. I called a moving truck company and booked a small one. I took the day off and packed more. Every time I went to the garage to get tape or to the shed to pull a box, I scanned the fence line. The motion light clicked on once in the afternoon for no reason. I flinched like a dog that's been hit too many times. Last night I slept at my brother's again, and today I signed paperwork for a different place across town. It's not nicer, it's just new to me, which right now feels like the greatest feature a place can have. I went back this afternoon to grab more boxes and to clean the bathroom so it wasn't too gross for whoever ends up here next. I took one last look at the yard from the kitchen. The curtain was still, the motion light off, the patio harmless in the daylight. I thought about all the little decisions that led here, ignoring a feeling, telling myself it was probably nothing, respecting someone's privacy because I didn't want to be rude, and I felt stupid and old and tired. Walking out, I noticed one more thing I can't quite place the meaning of. Tucked under the handle of the side gate, looped once like a bookmark, was the bungee cord that had disappeared weeks ago. It hadn't been there when I arrived. The rubber was dusty, like it had been dragged along the ground. I don't know if that's a message or a coincidence. I don't know what he wants. I don't want to find out. I locked the front door, put the key in an envelope for the landlord, and left. I know some people will hear this and think I'm overreacting. That's fine. I wish I were. I wish I was the kind of person who could shrug and laugh and say I got spooked by a shadow. But it wasn't a shadow. It was a man in a hoodie on the edge of my patio, testing my door at 2 a.m. with the patience of someone who has done this before. It was a man who practices stillness and who comes closer one night at a time. I don't need the story behind it to know what my body knows. I'm done waiting for the night he doesn't run when the light comes on. That's it. That's the whole thing. I'm moving. I don't feel brave about it. I feel relieved and stupid and mad and small. And I guess that's just how this ends for me. I'm not going to wait for him to try again. I'm not going to be the one still arguing with myself about what counts as proof at 3 in the morning, while a stranger figures out how my latch sits. I'm leaving because I want to sleep like a normal person again, and because this is still a free country, and I don't owe a watchful man my presence. And I am telling it like this, because maybe someone out there needs permission to trust their first reaction. But sometimes, even now, when I let my mind go quiet, I still hear footsteps in the yard. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Ebon for more real horror stories like this. Be careful out there. You never really know who's watching.